among the many battles that Alexander the Great fought in his 32-year life. The Battle of Hydaspes or Jhelum was one of his greatest military achievements. Porus, against whom he fought this battle, is depicted as a great Indian ruler in Western sources. The importance of Porus in these Western sources can be seen from the fact that whatever we know about Porus comes from these Western sources. If we remove these sources, we do not have any reference of Porus in Indian sources. Even Alexander's invasion is not mentioned in any Indian source. These Western sources, when we talk about Porus, tells us that Porus ruled the territory between the river Jhelum and Chenab. West of Jhelum lay the kingdom of Takshashila, whose ruler Ambhi had already submitted to Alexander. Alexander, who did not have any intention of stopping on the Jhelum, now wished to cross the river and move eastwards. But to do that, he first had to deal with Porus, about whom Alexander did not know whether he would submit like Ambhi or not. In one Western source, we are told that Alexander had even sent an envoy to Porus. This envoy of Alexander demanded that Porus must offer tribute to Alexander and he should also give hostages to Alexander. In response, Porus first whipped this envoy and he then sent this envoy back to Alexander with a letter. In this letter, Porus wrote, and I quote, "No matter who you are, and I am told that you are a Macedonian, it is better for you to remain at a distance and to reflect upon your own misfortune rather than envy another. Porus is declared undefeated up to this time, and Darius causes me no alarm. So imbecile, don't give me orders. Just set one foot in my territory with hostile intent, and you shall learn that I am king of India, that none but Jupiter is my master, and Porus swears this oath by the great fire that rules the heavens. If I catch any of your men in my territory, I shall have his blood on my lance, and I shall distribute your goods among my slaves, for I have an abundance of riches myself. I shall do only one thing that you demand, to be ready and waiting for you in arms at my borders." This letter and the story that Alexander's envoy was whipped by Porus is certainly not true. Most likely it was invented by this source to show that Porus was an arrogant king and he will soon be punished by Alexander. What is true though is the fate of the battle, which we know as the Battle of Hydaspes or the Battle of Jhelum. In this battle, Porus fought valiantly, but in the end, Alexander's forces won. The famous meeting of Alexander and Porus after the battle is known to most of us, where Porus famously replies to Alexander's question of how he should be treated by saying, "Treat me, O Alexander, as befits a king." The Western sources tell us that how Porus fought Alexander and how he conducted himself after the battle greatly impressed Alexander. Alexander was certainly generous to Porus. Porus retained his kingdom and a considerable amount of territory was later added to Porus's domain. Compare this with Ambi, who lost his sovereignty over his territory when he submitted to Alexander. Alexander first appointed a Greek to rule over Ambi's territory. When this Greek was murdered, Ambi had to share the governorship with another Greek. So if we compare to Ambi, Porus certainly got a lot. He had his kingdom to rule and he also got a lot of territory to rule as a governor. After the Battle of Hydaspes, Alexander, as we know, moved eastwards. In this march, Alexander asked Porus to provide him with elephants and good soldiers. In the bloody siege of Sangala, Porus's forces helped Alexander's forces to attack this city. When Alexander reached the river Beas and inquired about the great kingdom that lay eastwards, it was Porus who told Alexander that the king of Gandaridai was an utterly common and undistinguished character and was supposed to be the son of a barber. His father had been handsome and was greatly loved by the queen. When she had murdered her husband, the kingdom fell to him. This king of Gandaridae was none other than the Nanda king. And interestingly, what Porus told Alexander is also mentioned in a Indian source. So this tells us that Porus knew what was happening in the eastern part of the Indian subcontinent during this time. Now coming back to Alexander, when he returned from the river Beas, the fleet that would take him downstream of river Indus was constructed in Porus's territory. By this time, Porus's territory extended as far as river Beas. Historian A.B. Bosworth has argued that by the time Alexander had left India, all the territory beyond Jhelum, from the foothills of the Himalayas to the Indian Ocean, was under the nominal rule of Porus. In this huge territory, it is possible that Porus's rule was in name only. Most likely, he had a firm grip over his own territory, whereas the kingdoms in the southern region were left on their own. West of Jhelum lay the territory of Ambhi. By around 324-323 BC, it was governed jointly by Ambhi and a Greek named Eudemus. According to the Greek historian Diodorus, it was this Eudemus who in 317 BC murdered Porus. What happened between the period of 324 BC to 317 BC is not known. Most likely, the general anarchy that prevailed in this region after the death of Alexander contributed in Porus's assassination. Even the fate of Ambhi is not known. What we do know is the fact that Porus was assassinated by Eudemus. If you want to know more about Ambhi, do watch this video where I have talked about what we know about Ambhi from Western sources. Thank you for watching.